Hello, everyone. I promised that we are going to look at the exact Chiron Eris conjunction, which is going to occur on the 9th of October in the small hours. And this conjunction last occurred about 50 years ago, in the 70s, actually more, 53, 54 years ago, the early 70s, 1970, 71, when it was conjunct at 12 degrees of Aries. But it was still in Aries because Aries is a very slow moving object. And Chiron's orbit is about 49 to 51 years. So we are having the same exact thing again. And let's take a look at the London chart, and I'm going to show you a couple of things because it gives me occasion to look at these two celestial objects. So the exact conjunction will be at 3:50 a.m. London time, and I gave the title Karmic Wounds Created by Drastically Altered Outward Circumstances, because that's what these two objects are. We have a Virgo rising, which means that Chiron is ruling the space-time moment. In karmic astrology, Chiron is the ruler of Virgo. And Venus is in the first house, signifying that what you look around is driven by money and greed, of course. In the London chart, you have the Uranus-Sedna conjunction on the IC. Neptune is almost ready to move back into Pisces, not yet. And Juno is on the IC. Juno, which is the First Lady, officially accepted, and all the liaisons, all the relationships that we commit to, that we consider very serious, uh, even before others. So it's quite interesting that it's on the IC, showing that in our roots, in our karmic roots, our alliances, our pacts and promises are really deeply there. But at the same time, Uranus is disrupting and changing things in the future. Especially in London, it's amazing to see all these riots, all these pro-Palestine demonstrations, and also the patriot demonstrations. So something is brewing in England, and it's when it erupts, it's not going to be very nice. Anyhow, so those are the highlights of the chart, and let's take it apart. So first, let's take a look at Chiron, the wounded healer. The object was discovered in 1977 by Charles Koval, and the K from his last name is included in the glyph. But at the same time, if you make this circle a little bit smaller and this portion of the K longer, it really looks like an old-fashioned key. And yes, Chiron is the key of 3D incarnations, simply because it describes our karmic wounds. So the object type, of course, is Centaur. As I said, the orbital period is somewhere between 49 and 51. You have the Chiron return around that age, and it always signifies a time when you will meet whatever you haven't resolved. Of course, you might ask the question, can we resolve at all karmic wounds? And my answer is, we can try and we can rectify it a little bit, and we can get closer and closer to healing, but they never really disappear. That's the problem. The mythology is very simple. When you look at Greek myths, they usually have 2 or 3 versions, and the older version is really the one that is non-PC. This is a rape case, okay? So Kronos simply rapes Chiron's mother, Philyra, who is a nymph. In some stories, she's a water nymph. In other stories, she's a wood nymph, a forest nymph. Doesn't really matter. And of course, this is the non-PC version. And the reason why Kronos turns into a horse is because Philyra tries to get away from him and turns herself into a filly, but of course then he turns himself into a big war horse and rapes her. And that's the non-PC version. The PC version is, of course, consensual sex. Isn't that always the case? when they say in front of the court that, oh, I thought she wanted it. I thought this was consensual. How could I know that she doesn't want it? Oh, yeah, really. And so that's the PC version when it's the consensual, and the reason why it turns into a horse is because his wife Rhea is appearing on the horizon, and he doesn't want to get caught, and so he turns himself into a horse, and that is how Chiron is conceived. And when he's born, and then Philira, the mother, looks at him, his half horse, half human child. She gets really, really scared, and she says to the god that she doesn't want to be anywhere, and please somehow raise him, and that's what happens, because Chiron is raised by the gods, especially Apollo, the sun god, which he then reciprocates by raising heroes and princes. In this mosaic, you can see how he teaches Achilles, one of the heroes. And so his first karmic wound comes from his mother's rejection. But then, of course, the story develops, and one day Hercules is visiting him and Pholus in their cave, and they open the sacred wine of the centaurs and start to drink. But the rest of the centaurs only smell the wine, but they still get really, really drunk on just the smell and start attacking them. And so Hercules is starting to shoot arrows on them, which was initially dipped into the blood of the Hydra, which is a poison, a deadly poison. So the centaurs start to die, and this is how Chiron received his wound. It should be a mortal wound. Here's the essence of the story. He is a divine character, so he can't die, obviously. But the Hydra's blood is a deadly poison, so he gets the deadly poison, but he can't die. But he also can't heal. So what he does is he tries to find healing potentials for everyone, and new methods and new ways and new inventions, and he can heal everyone else but himself. So so Chiron in the birth chart describes the nature of our karmic wounds. And in karmic astrological delineation, the sum total of these wounds are described by the sign and house placement of Chiron. And it's usually interesting because the house placement is relevant from another interesting viewpoint, because it means that this is a sphere of life which you start dealing with quite early. So instead of shunning it or disregarding it, what we would do in the case of Saturn's house is something that we shun, and we don't really want to do it. In Chiron's case, the house placement is relevant because you start doing it quite early, because the soul hopes to get rid of those wounds. It also gives you healing properties, healing potentials, the healer archetype, and that is why it's also linked to synthesis. But it also describes fears and phobias and unique traits coming out of these fears, phobias, and wounds. And that is why it is the key to this 3D incarnation. So the motto could be that I will heal when I heal other people's wounds, because that is what you need to do. You won't be able to heal your own wounds. You will get some healing if you try to heal other people's similar wounds. So that is the wounded healer. Now let's take a look at Eris. Eris, the archetype of strife and discord. And the object type is an SDO, a scattered disk object. It's far away from the main Kuiper belt. That is why its orbital period is 557 years, almost 556, 58 years and change. And the mythology is in Greek myth, she is the consort / sister / lover of Eris, so the war god. And the reason why Eris needs this little helper, the demon that causes strife and discord, is very simple. The Greeks are very rational, very logical people, and they couldn't really think why a person, a normal human person, would go mad. So there were two madnesses, particularly, which they considered that they have to have some sort of divine or demonic intervention. One was love, and the other one was wars and strife and discord. So they thought that if you are a normal person, you don't fall in love because you don't want to become an idiot, because that is what's happening when you are in love. You become a total complete idiot. So you need something to get to that state. Either some sort of um, the Cupid's little arrow, or some kind of love potion, or some kind of other magical property that you are going to become and show the madness of love. And the other one, war, again, is a normal, rational person would not enter into a war. So you need an agent that first causes strife and discord, and then can come in Aries, Mars, and he can develop a full-blown war between rivals. So in karmic astrology, it describes strife, rivalry, quarrels, and of course discord. And it describes in mundane charts, especially drastically altered outward circumstances. That is why we call it the outward karma breaker. It simply describes the place where it is. It describes that you would like to have equilibrium. You would like to have peace and quiet, but some outer vehicle, outer phenomenon pushes you out of your normal place and causes you to change. So that is why it's a karma breaker, because and comes from the outside, because it simply means that you would like to sit where you are, but you are unable to, because the world is in upheaval. Look around, the world is in upheaval. That is what the space-time moment describes. And of course, its motto is, how can we survive this? That is really the question at the moment. And it's very interesting, because if you look at look at what's happening in the world, what they're trying to do now, the United States, Russia, and China are trying to create like a three-body new era where everyone has its place. And then comes the old rulers, which is the center of which is, of course, is the city in London. And what they want, the powers that be, want a huge European empire, England included, of course, which is stretching up till the Ural mountains, so half of Russia as well. And that is why they are pushing this war. And it doesn't matter that 1,000 people are dying or get ruined every day. No, they want to conquer Russia so that they can put their hands on their resources and then create this huge empire, which then will allow the United States and maybe China as well to have like a secondary place. Of course, they won't succeed, unfortunately, because they don't have the resources, they don't have the money, they already have impoverished the European people. There's no money, no weapon, and no people who would fight. So it's just sad how they are trying to do this. Anyhow, these are the aspects that are with to the configuration. And we do have a little engine, and little engine is made up by a square, a quincunx, and a sextile. And it's quite a powerful energy. It's not as powerful as a proper engine, which has a square, a trine, and the quincunx, but it still joins three very distinct aspects coming from very, very diverse aspect families. And we have a beautiful sextile by Venus and Jupiter. So there's this harmony and love. in it. But of course, Venus is also the issue about money and about finances and about the monetary power. And So that's one thing. That is one configuration. And the other configuration is really not a proper configuration. We call this in karmic astrology a sliver, when you have 3 or 4 different aspects that are not actually closing. Here, they seem to be closing because there's a semi-sextile between Mars and Vesta, the focusing principle. But then Juno makes a biquintile with the conjunction. So we have a quindecilla, the 165-degree obsession ambition coming from Mars, which is actually ruling the conjunction. So you can see the drive, the war drive, that the greed behind this, and the action-packed energy that everyone is pushing this war, and they really want to trigger it. But at the same time, we have this beautiful biquintile from Juno, which is alliances, pacts, and harmony, creating harmony through an alliance or through a contract. So that's the saving grace. And the Sepki quadrate is from Vesta is both in fire sign, so it's almost like an energized sign. And Vesta is, of course, the focusing principle and tells us to focus on stuff. Here are the transcendental celestial objects. As you can see, quite a few fixed stars. Fixed stars are always red in these videos, and the magenta purple ones are asteroids, and the centaurs are usually blue. We don't really have a centaur in this particular chart. On Venus, you have Cupid, of course. What else? And Hector, who is the hero of the Trojan War, and the crown prince, who is actually killed in the Trojan War by Achilles, and Danabola, which is Beta Leo. It's we are going to look at it. I'm going to show it to you. On Mars, you have Volcano, the eruption, and Acrux, which is Alpha Southern Cross. Again, we are going to look at it. On Jupiter, you have still Pollux, which I'm not going to show you because it was in the full moon chart as well. You can go back and see what it is. But of course, it is the beta star of Gemini. And it's the twin, which is the unlucky artist. And Pythia, the divine oracle. Hathor, she is the goddess, mother goddess of the Egyptians. And Geisha, the most old-fashioned feminine role, let's put it this way, very nicely. On the Juno IC conjunction, you have Asteria, the asteroid of astrology and divination. So it's in there for us. And on Vesta, you have Helena, the most beautiful woman on earth, and Hermes is the Greek counterpart of Mercury. And Alvide, which is Beta Draco, I'm going to show it to you. And on the Chiron Eris conjunction, you have Giza, the pyramids, the site of the pyramids, which I have a hunch that it's very much older than they want us to believe. It is at least 10 or 11,000 years old. So it must come from, they must have been built by the Atlanteans. Anyhow, here are the stars of this particular chart. Here's the stars of Leo. As you can see, this is the constellation Leo. This is quite a big one. Here's Regulus, right on the ecliptic. This is the head of the celestial alliance, and this is the tail. So Danabola is the tail, and the whole constellation Leo is about ruling, sovereignty. It's the world where sovereigns and kings and rulers are being trained. And Danabola is the instinctual level of rulership or sovereignty. Here are the stars of Draco, and Draco is winding around the celestial pole. It's quite a huge constellation, and as you can see, Alvide, or another name for it is Rastaban, is the eye of the celestial Draco. So and the whole constellation is about creating or actually protecting some kind of treasure. And the eye of the dragon is what the ever-seeing eye, which is actually paying attention to the govern to the protection anyhow. So that's what it is. And here's the Southern Cross, which we won't be able to see from the northern hemisphere. As you can see, it's a very, very southern star, beautiful one. The whole constellation Southern Cross, which is actually the foot, one of the legs of the celestial centaur. Ptolemy and Jane are the alpha and beta stars of the centaur, and a crux is at the foot of it, right here, almost at the southern pole. There's no southern pole star at the moment. So this is the Chiron Eris conjunction. It is not a nice conjunction. It is a war triggering conjunction, especially with this particular full moon. So the conjunction is just 2 days. It occurs 2 days after the Aries full moon, which is still a very militant full moon. I can say that we will have to hope for some sense. Hopefully, the leaders of Europe are horrible. I mean, look what happens in France or anywhere in Europe. These idiots, they are idiots, cretins, dishonest, stupid people, and they don't care for us. That's the key. They don't care for the people. They care for themselves and their own agenda. That's the problem. Anyhow, pay attention to what you are doing. Pay attention to the news. Try not to remain in your own bubble. Try to read different news pieces and get some ideas of what is really going on, because you have to see through the smoke screen, behind the smoke screen, to understand what is happening in the world. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.